I'm the founder of the Institute for Next Level Leadership. All our programs, as you're going to see today, are inspired by the Enneagram. And we're going to talk a little bit more of the Enneagram, but we started in 2018. We were established in 2019 with the mission to empower from within. What does that mean? You're going to see some of it today. So first of all, I'm going to ask you to please write down your questions. We have a lot of information. I hope this information is going to be valuable to you. But what I would like to do is go through all the information, and then in the end, we share. We can stay longer if you have questions, but then at least you get the information right away. I'm going to ask you to keep an open mind. The Enneagram was kept in secret for most of its existence. It actually really came into the public in the 60s, and it was kept in secret for a reason, because it's a body of knowledge that it's very profound, very deep. It never ends. I don't think anyone is a master in the Enneagram, because the more you learn about the Enneagram, the more there is to explore. So keep an open mind. I think what you're going to hear today is going to be somewhat new to some of you. I don't know if you have had any experience with the Enneagram before. I think the Enneagram the Enneagram comes into someone's life when the time is ripe for it. So it's kind of like a nice synchronicity that happens. And it takes a long time, I think, for us to really come to the level of observation of ourselves and others that can really get deep into the information. But what I'm going to present to you today, I think will give you a nice taste of it. In the Enneagram arena, we ask that you're not asked to believe in anything that you cannot observe. So observation is key. Observation of yourself, of what's happening inside of you, and what's happening outside of you. Almost like if you're watching a movie, and you're watching yourself as part of that movie, and you're able then to observe. And then the Enneagram will provide you with insights, perspectives on what you're observing. If you have never heard of the Enneagram before, there's an interesting way of getting acquainted with it. You can take a test. The Enneagram Institute has a wonderful test. It's online. I think they charge $12, and they give you a very interesting report, a lot of information there. I recommend if you'd like to go a little deeper on this. The goal here is to understand yourself and understand others a lot better. Imagine what you could do if you understood yourself and others better. And the purpose is infinite. You can use this for your personal growth, for relationship development, for conflict resolution, coaching, parenting, team development, leadership, anywhere, anything, anytime. The Enneagram is really a perspective in which you look at life, you look at the world, and how you participate in it. And finally, for all those of you who are here, thank you for spending this time with me. I would like to offer you the gift of an Enneagram consultation. If you're interested, just email me. I'll be happy to schedule time with you, and we can go through the Enneagram or whatever is happening in your life along the lenses of the Enneagram, and see how this can be helpful to you. All right, so let's get started. The Enneagram has a mysterious origin. Nobody really knows where the Enneagram actually started. But there are traces of the Enneagram as far back as Pythagoras, 2,500 years ago. The parts that we know about the Enneagram, I studied ancient Enneagram for quite a while. And there is this Sheikh Abdullah is a very interesting Sufi teacher that says the Enneagram is a map of the presence of God. It maps signs of the presence of God. Another interesting author, Rodney Collins, calls it a map of planetary energies. He calls it planetary energies or soul types. Another one more recent, someone that really inspires me, Almas, he says the Enneagram will offer you a comprehensive view of objective reality. What does that mean? It means if we look at life and the world without our interpretations, our traumas, our pains, and everything we put in it, what would we see? And that's what the Enneagram can show us. And finally, El Sharbini, he is the president of the Enneagram Association in Egypt. He talks about our ego trying to mimic essence in a distorted way. So the job of the ego is to mimic the soul, but of course, it's never accurate. And so the ego tries to manipulate here and there to mimic something that already exists, which is the soul, and it's magnificently beautiful. So the Enneagram helps us come right into that essence, come right into that soul. So then that's where we start. We start with the essences, and we're going to look at them today. Once we learn of the essences, we're going to look where those essences are in the world, in the cosmos, in the universe. How do we observe those essences? Then we look at them in animals and plants, because these essences are everywhere. Nobody's making them happen. They are already. And once we see them in animals and plants, we see them how they show up in babies. I like to look at very young babies, because who teach them those things, So I think they validate the point that these are energies that are already present, whether we know about them or not, they already are. So we look them in human babies, and then we look at what happens when we grow up. How do these energies manifest in us as adults? And from there, we can come into what we call leadership, because leadership then becomes an invitation for you to be the best version you can be by working along with these essences, by flowing through those essences in a way that these essences can be channeled through you in inspiring ways. All right, so there we go. Let's get started. So let's imagine now that the entire creation is represented by, let's say, by light. Okay, creation is light, existence is light. And what the Enneagram says is that creation has 9 aspects, 9 distinguishable aspects. And these aspects are in constant movement. It's never stable. Nothing stays the same, not even for half an hour. That's what it said in the Enneagram Computer. It's always moving, and it's moving in an orderly way. There is a direction with which these energies move. And so all of it is symbolized by the circle, which is the unity, the wholeness of all that exists, and the inner lines are the way those energies move. We're not going to get into that today, because that's a whole nother program. But we're going to go through each energy and get a sense of what they are. We're going to watch some videos, some funny, some not so funny, and let's see how it goes. So we're going to start with the 8. Why do we start with the 8? Because the energy of, think of the energy of the 8 as the commander of existence. The energy of the 8 is this energy that is large and in charge. It's disrupting the status quo. It's challenging what is. There's an immediacy about it. It's right on your face. There is a power about it, an intensity, and it becomes sort of like omnipotent, kind of like the initiators of something else, the initiators of change. In the Enneagram field, we call it the holy truth, meaning the energy that kind of holds the truth of existence. So if all existence was an absolute truth, the energy of the 8 is the one that is holding this truth. So here we go. How do we see it in the cosmos? The energy of the 8, you can see, well, the Big Bang. It's the great disruptor, right? Everything was peace and calm and stable, and there comes the Big Bang, and it changes everything. It initiates existence. Hunting is this opportunity to dominate something else, to take it in. The queen bee, the big boss, being the big boss, and mating is this opportunity to take over, to dominate, to bring it as one. marking territory, a spider web. Nothing goes through the spider web that the spider has no control of. That's the energy of the 8 in cosmological views. Here is an example of this energy in animals. So let's look at these 2 cats and how they have fun. And you can see here how 8s have fun. There you go. So you see the domineering aspect of it, the changing of the status quo by challenging each other. And that almost becomes the fun of it, is the opportunity to challenge and to play in that challenge, in that disruption. Now, here's a very young baby starting to manifest the 8 energy. Here we go. You see the challenging and the kind of domineering, not in a negative way, very innocently, the domineering of the environment. It's kind of like, it's going to be my way. I know the truth here. And that's kind of the energy of the 8. And as we grow up with that energy, we become powerful leaders. Of course, you're taking charge. We are large and in charge and taking control and kind of involved in everything. We become the challenger, the queen, the king, the leader. It's the natural boss. So in our high levels, we become very autonomous. There's this can-do attitude, a vitality, and a self-confidence. As we become more disturbed and the personality become more distorted by the ego, we start to get very territorial, kind of provocative, very bossy and guarded. We start being tough. Now, in our most difficult days, and those are the red flags of our behavior, we can become very aggressive and intimidating and even abusive and confrontational, and we start looking for who's to blame here. That level of beingness is the red flag. That's when we need help, because what we are living at that level is an unconscious fear of being destroyed or rejected or have no potency for life. That fear can be very unconscious and can be dominating everything we do, because the inner critic, the message inside is that I must always be in control, because if I'm not always in control, then I'll be destroyed, I'll be rejected. And there is that drive that becomes exaggerated towards control and can be dominating and intimidating. Now, here is the appreciative increase that Mark was mentioning before, because once we are in that state, that red flag state, one thing we need to look into is how to change complexity into simplicity. How can you come into the crux of the matter? How can you really come to what's important here and what's the wisdom of the heart? And here's the 3 tips for us when we are in that place of blaming, is to relax control. One of the most difficult things to do at that moment is to relax control, but that's exactly what we need to do, to relax control, to open to the wisdom of the heart, to the opportunity of being vulnerable, which doesn't mean crying around, but it means that we can say, I don't know the answer. Could you help me with the answer? What ideas do you have? And that allows for the vulnerability for us to come back again into the higher states of being. Okay, so let's move on to the 9 energy. The 9 energy is like the glue of existence. It's what keeps existence all together. The fascia, we have a fascia in our bodies that keeps our muscles and bones and all together. That's the 9. The 9 keeps things together. It's an energy that is indivisible. It's about peace. It's about harmony. It's about encompassing everything. It's about the interconnectedness and the unity of everything. There is no separation, no duality, no polarity. Everything is there and nothing falls out of that unity. So where do we see that? Well, usually we call it, in the higher states, we call it the holy idea is the holy love. Love is what keeps it all together. Not the possessive love we know of, but the unconditional love is what keeps us all together. How do we see this in the cosmos? Well, the cosmos itself is like, who's keeping all these things, all these planets, the stars, all, circling around each other? Who keeps it all together? The molecules of water that attracts, water follows water. And it's kind of like that togetherness. The animals that flies and stays in flocks. The World Wide Web, that invisible interconnection. That's all the energy of the 9 playing out. So here's a representation. We're going to see a little video now of what happens when the energy of the 9 faces separation, which, the energy of the 9 faces separation in physical world all the time. But that's how how the separation discombobulates the energy of the 9. So let's take a look at this little dog.
Opposite directions to see who your dogs love more. Run in opposite directions.
That's an energy that gets into a loop. It doesn't really, the separation overwhelms the energy of the 9. And the 9 kind of becomes, as you'll see, kind of like a nobody in the loop. When it comes into the baby, it's a baby that is very low maintenance. It doesn't want to rock the boat. You almost forget there's a baby in the house. It's a baby that behaves a lot like this one.
Umay, Umay, kalk kızım, kalk yerine yat. Umay, Umay.
Yeah, so it's a very peaceful baby. Peaceful is the nature of the energy of the 9. So this is called the peaceful leader. It usually, it plays the role of the mediator and the reconciler and the diplomat. So in our high states, we are very peaceful, very optimistic, patient. We can see many perspectives of the same situation. As the personality starts coming out and we start to get challenged, we become more accommodating, more comfort seeking, looking for routines and kind of like daydreaming. We live in another orbit. And as we we go down into the distortion of the ego, we can become very numbing of ourselves. We forget our needs, we forget who we are, what we need. It's kind of like an apathy takes place, very disempowered, unresponsive. It's like, don't talk to me, pretend I don't exist, pretend I'm not here. That's the part of the 9 that it's the red flag. And it's really living an unconscious fear of being disconnected and cut out. And the inner critic message is, I have to make sure everybody's okay for me to be okay. And if everybody's not okay, then I cannot be okay. And one way to get out of this, the appreciative increase here is for us to start coming into that observation and present. What's present for me right now? Whether it's pain or joy or good or bad, just be aware of what's in my body, what's in my heart, what's in my mind. How can I bring myself into engagement? And how can I allow myself to step out of the comfort zone? Sometimes stepping out of the comfort zone is acting on those sensations, those feelings, expressing our thoughts and our ideas. And so 3 things here for the 9 is my presence matters. Do not hide out. We come out and we show up, whether we like it or don't like it, we want it or we don't want it, we just come and show up. And we show up with the intention to engage and participate, and not just be a body sitting there, dead alive, but really engage and participate in a more visible way. Okay, let's go to the energy of the one. The energy of the one is the appraiser of existence. So think of like the part of God that takes care of everything, that counts every hair, that knows every hair in your head, that knows every grass in the field, that counts every birds in the sky. That's the one energy. It's like everything has its place, and there's a place for everything. There's an order, an organization, a structure that follows everything. We can calculate when the planets are going to align and when the seasons start and the season end. So there's an order and a predictability to everything that there is. And that's a representation of the one energy. We call it holy perfection. There's this level of perfection that takes place in existence. The way we see it in the cosmos is by animals nesting. The birds will grab those little twigs to find, put their nests together, or the way animals clean themselves. The exercise of time counting, that's the energy of the one. The exercise of computing and programming, it's all that one energy, try to organize and create structure. One way we can see it represented, look at the energy in this little, I guess it's a lizard or something, and look for that energy of order and structure that it's demonstrated in this video. Here we go. You can possibly think of the people that that has that level of serenity and organization and structure that looks, you can see the energy that looks like the energy represented here. Now, how is this energy born in human babies? Here you're going to see, the human baby remembers prior to birth, we remember that energy of perfection. So we come in the world ready to embrace perfection. And then we realize, we are in time and space, and things need to follow a certain structure. So look at this baby as a representation of the one energy being born right there.
For her birthday party. No. Legally, let go. Let go. Let go. You got a helping Brittany.
So we learn as we come into time and space that things have a certain order. They have to do a little bit at a time, in a structure, in an order. And that's where the energy of the one is born in all of us. We become the conscientious leader when we lead with this energy. We are very principled and responsible and disciplined. There is a sense of mission and commitment when we are in our higher levels. As we become more disturbed, the ego takes place. We become more rigid and tense, trying to fix and improving everything, more opinionated, attached to shoulds and musts. It's got to be this way, a little impatient. And in our red flag state, we are very judgmental and critical and very harsh. Very narrow-minded, and we become very resentful of what's happening of others. It's kind of like I live in a world of stupidity, this kind of resentment. And here, the roles that we play out of this energy usually is a role of excellence, being the example, the teacher, the advocate. That's all the one energy. Now, when we are in that resentment state in our red flag, we are really playing out an unconscious fear of being bad, flawed, or corrupt. That's the core fear of the energy of the one, is to feel that I'm bad, I'm flawed, or I'm corrupt. And the inner critic message is that I have to always do what's right. I have to be good. In order to survive in the world, I have to always be good and do what's right. And here is the appreciative inquiry. Here is, how can I integrate? What's the big picture? It's trying to look beyond, that narrow structure that I create for myself. How can I be creative? And what's possible here? So here, the 3 to-dos is start exploring new possibilities, use your creativity, and start playing with spontaneity and flexibility, because that will allow us to have a bigger, broader perspective in which to really create a better order and a better structure. Okay, let's go to the energy of the 2. The energy of the 2 is a beautiful energy. It's like the umbilical cord of existence. The energy of the 2 is the energy that is providing for every bird in the sky. It's feeding every tree in the field. It's feeding every grass, every animal. It's sustaining us all. It's nourishing and giving us life. We call it holy will or holy freedom. You know, holy will is like the divine will. If you want to be free, you have to follow the divine will. You can't go against that, because going against the divine will is just going to be a whole of trouble and resistance. And so the energy of the 2 is that holy will. And when we align ourselves with holy will, then we can really experience true freedom. So how we see that cosmologically speaking, we see it in, of course, breastfeeding and the ways that animals feed each other and they groom each other in symbiotic relationships like trees and orchids and all kinds of symbiotic relationships that are out in the universe. And here's a representation of this being lived in the animal world. There you go. All right, there you see it. Now, how does it play out when in human babies? Here you go. Watch this little video here. So you see, the baby wants to be the provider of the love, the provider of that connection. So it takes the mom's hands away and it's like, this is my dad kind of thing. So in the energy of the 2, we become the caring leader. We really lead with our hearts. In our high levels, we are very loving, very nurturing, service-oriented, and very warm-hearted. As the ego starts to take over and wanting to mimic that essence, we become a lot more possessive and people-pleasing, kind of like being overly pleasing with an agenda behind, you know, very self-sacrificing and very hovering on top of the other person. And in our red flag state, we become overbearing, kind of the martyr, patronizing others. And it's kind of like doing everything for someone else, asking for please that they will love us back. There is this neediness that takes place, becomes manipulative. Our giving becomes manipulative. And so it's our red flag. But here are the high roles that we play. Here is the helper, the giver, the caretaker. When we are in our red flag states, what we are actually dealing with is an unconscious fear of being loveless and being unlovable. If I'm loveless and I'm unlovable, I can't survive in the world. And so there's that unconscious fear. I have to be lovable in order to be loved. And that's almost like that you know, it's a survival fear kind of for all the types. You know, those are very unconscious and very deep fearful states inside of us. So what we do here for the 2 is we come into collaboration. We start looking at what are my needs. How can I create healthy boundaries between me and the other and honor the exchange? Collaboration is about giving and receiving. It has to go both ways for it to be collaboration. And so here are 3 ways we can do that, is really noticing when we are overstepping, our boundaries, honor that giving and the receiving that flows, that goes back and forth, because that enhances everybody involved. and we learn to take care of ourselves first so that we can take care of others, because we cannot take care of others when we are in a depleted state of being. Okay, let's go to the 3, the energy of the 3. The 3 is the radiance, the glory of existence. So think of the energy of the 3 as this, the brightness, the radiance, the majestic, that it's always showing up, like the sun that always shows up next day in its same radiance. It's always showing up anew. It's always presenting itself for all to see in full light and full shine, and it's always achieving, it's always demonstrating its best. Okay, it's called the glory of existence. The high view here is that idea of holy hope, because we know things are following a specific structure, a specific law, the holy perfection. We can have hope that tomorrow the sun is going to be there again. The moon is going to show up again, because there is this harmonious state in which everything works that gives us this eternal hope. All right, so how do we see that in the cosmos? We see that, of course, in the sunlight. It's always there. Even when there's clouds, the sun is always there, and it's always going to show up in the morning. In the flowers, that it's standing out. It's standing on its beauty and its splendor, and it's just showing off to the world, no matter if there's a war out there, or if it's a wedding, or if it's a funeral. It's standing out in its beauty, and it's constantly working. So you see the ant, and the bees, those that are constantly working, and actually they seem to do more than their bodies are capable of. That's the energy of the 3, the achiever and the doer. Here is a representation in the animal world of how this energy of radiance shows up. Here we go. Look at this bird calling attention here. So, I'm sure somebody who shows up always in their perfect state of being. They always well dressed and well put together, that's the 3. But here is how it's born in a baby, how the energy of the 3 is born in the baby. Here you go. Look at this. Oh, sorry. So this energy is born when we do things that are well accepted. We excel in something, and we are praised, and we receive all the claps. And that's the energy of the 3. It brings us into our radiance. It brings us into the success of the 3. So the energy of the 3 is the successful leader. Not that they are necessarily successful, but we dress up in success. No matter how bad I feel or how bad I did, I dress up in success, and I show up in radiance. And in our high levels, we become very admirable, purposeful, hardworking. We come into our unlimited potential. As the ego starts to distort the energy, we become more goal-oriented, competitive, more conscious of status and image, workaholic in many ways. And in our red flag, we become aggressively competitive, actually phony and sometimes deceitful, trying to do everything our own, like I'm doing it all by myself. That's the red flag. These are the roles usually played by the energy of the 3. But when we are in our red flag state, we are actually playing out the unconscious fear of being worthless and without value. The idea is, if I'm worthless and without value, who am I? What am I going to do in the world? Nobody's going to care for me. Nobody wants me. And so the inner message is I must achieve, and I must show success always. And you can see how draining that can be. So in order to alleviate ourselves from that primal fear, we come into adaptation. It's like, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to be. What am I without doing? Who am I? Get to know myself without the doing. How can I connect to my heart and allow my heart to show me my value? Three things here is to slow down, to awaken to our heart power, to our heart wisdom, to our heart intelligence, and focus on relationships rather than goals. Who is with me? How can I help? How can I serve? How can I connect? Rather than the tasks and the goals, we focus on people. All right, the energy of the 4. The energy of the 4 is a very deep and mysterious energy because it represents the source of everything. It's the source of creation, the beginning of it all, the reason for it all, the meaning for it all. So this energy is very deep. It's very original, very unique. It's connected to beauty because everything that is created in existence comes from this source. And so it's the origin of every shape and every beauty you see around us. And so a very profound energy, we call it the holy origin. Now, how do we see it in the cosmos? We see it in the supernovas, when stars are born and nobody knows where that comes from. The black holes, nobody knows where it's going, what's doing there. It's like this mystery. We see it in transitions. Any time we are facing transition, be it a career transition or a life transition, there is some of the energy of the 4. There's a part of us that grieves something and a part of us that is excited for what's yet to come. So we are in that, in that transition phase. It's the energy between birth and death. That's the energy of the 4. Here is how it plays out. And you will see here the depths. It looks like a bit of a desolate space, but look at the depth. There seems to be more to it than what the eyes can see. So look at this little monkey here. Have you ever been in a place like that? Like there's just like that something deeper happening inside of us. And we've seen people, in that kind of energy. Look at this little baby, recently born baby. It looks like he's seeing more than he's actually seeing. So look at the depth here. You see the depth in the eye, in his eyes or her eyes, that's kind of like the energy of the 4 present in us. So we become the intuitive leader. When the energy of the 4 predominates in us, we become very intuitive. It's like we are actually using both sides of our brains. We become very unique, very different, very purpose, very intimate, very impressionable. The things we say, the things we do, the way we show up creates an impression, it's kind of mysterious impression about us. When the ego starts taking place and dominating, it becomes more dramatic, romantic, maybe past-oriented, kind of like feeling misunderstood and hypersensitive to everything and everyone. And when we are in our red flag, we kind of start victimizing ourselves, feeling like, oh, everybody has it, but I don't. We become blocked creatively, kind of a sense of depression in a way. And this state of like desolation is kind of like despair and isolation. That's our red flag for the 4. These are some of the roles the 4 plays. But in the red flag state, we are actually dealing with an unconscious fear of having no identity, no meaning, no significance. Who am I? What am I doing here? I don't know who I am. And that's our greatest fear. The inner critic is telling us, I have to be me in a meaningful way. I have to be me in a meaningful way. I have to belong to something and be me in a meaningful way. And that can be very draining for us in this 4 energy. So the way to alleviate this is to look for stabilization. How do I stabilize myself? No matter how crazy seems to be, and no matter how our emotions may be going upside down, how can I win in my self-narrative? How can I tell myself a story where I win? How do I belong and still be me? How can I be part of something without losing myself, still being me? What are my mission and my values? Because my mission and my values will help me be me while still belonging to something meaningful. And so the three things we can do here is first engage with your mission, vision, and values. Figure out what's my mission. It doesn't have to be the mission for your rest of lifetime, but it's your mission now. And so just engage with that. Create this consciousness of service, because that allows you to belong, to bring your mission and your vision and your values into the world and show up no matter what. Kind of like the 9, that shows up in the no matter what. The nine has to show up, because if they don't, they kind of start living in another orbit. They forget themselves. The 4 needs to show up, because otherwise we get lost in our feelings. We get lost in the turmoil of the feelings, and then we don't do anything. So it's just like show up anyway. All right, we have a few more to go. What time we have? Okay, and we have a few more minutes. So let's go into the energy of the 5. The energy of the 5 is like the windows, the eyes of existence. It's a very observant energy. It's the energy that it's putting everything together. It's connecting the dots. It's the seer, the investigator. And as we connect all these dots, we come to a greater level of clarity. It's kind of like we see things and we see how they connect with one another, and how the ripple effects, we talk about the butterfly flies in China and creates a ripple effect. The energy of the 5 can see that connection, that ripple effect. The way we call it holy transparency. It's like once you see something, you see all the truths that are behind it. You see all the layers of the onion kind of thing. And there is like this ability to zoom through things and see many levels of truth taking place and how they are all related. So how do we see this cosmologically? We see this in snowflakes, for example. They are all snowflakes, but they are all different. Fingerprints. We all have our fingerprints. We all have fingerprints, but none of them are exactly the same. The patterns in nature, those patterns are the same, but they're not exactly the same. And so once we know a pattern, we kind of like know all of it, but we still recognize that unity in multiplicity, they call in the energy of the 5. So here's a representation of a little cat demonstrating his observation skills. Here you go. When your cat is a 5. So the 5 is really attuned, to what's happened. Look at this in a baby. There we go.
One of my favorites. Watch his face.
And it's going to be all right. Because Easton is going to sit here and look at me, and he is going to fight me for sitting here fussing at you. I don't know why he trying to always see what I'm saying to you and always in my mouth like he going to beat me or something. But I don't know what he think he going to do, because he can't even get in a walk and move around yet. But he think he going to beat me, because I see you. Now you gonna turn your head like I wasn't looking at, that you weren't looking at me? Easton. Oh, so it's like that? You gonna take up for Amari like that even when you get older? Mommy. Or you gonna help me beat up? What's it gonna be? You gonna take up for her, or you gonna help me beat up? Mommy. Or you just gonna love on your auntie?
What I love about this video, it's his little hand. And you can see that he's connecting dots inside his head, and he has this little hand. That's totally the energy of the 5, that it's seeing and it's observing everything and it's reflecting about it. So as we grow up, we become the knowledgeable leader. We can really retain a lot of stuff intellectually and mentally. And there's sort of like a gnosis. There's an inner knowing that is part of the energy of the 5. We become very perceptive, very inventive, very communicative, but we also enjoy aloneness. The alone time for the 5 is where we connect those dots. As the ego takes place, we become more preoccupied, more reclusive. It's kind of like, what if this, what if that? There is a way of compartmentalizing things and becoming very reclusive. And in the red flags there, we come into alienation. We actually we feel like we are an alien in the world. It's like nobody, I can't connect with anybody, very antagonistic, very provocative, cynical in many ways, and intellectually arrogant. So that's a state of a red flag for the 5, where we really need help in that place. These are the roles that the 5 usually plays. And where we are in the state of alienation, what we're dealing with is an unconscious fear of being ignorant. Because if I'm ignorant and I don't have any knowledge, if I lose my knowledge, I'm lost. I'm lost in the world. I don't know how am I going to survive? And there is that deep fear of being ignorant and lost without knowing. The inner critic is the one telling us you must know and be knowledgeable. In order to survive, you got to know and you got to be knowledgeable. So the alleviation here, the appreciative increase here is, how can I come into small actions, like break down big things into little parts, bring my heart into the little things that I'm doing, and start investigating, how can I make my ideas applicable? How can I bring my ideas into the world? How can my ideas be of service in a useful way? So 3 ways of doing that is connecting with others, because usefulness will help us as the 5 to connect with others. I have a reason to connect with you. Here's what I can bring to the table. Here's what can be useful to you, to me, to all of us. And it helps in that connection. And as that connection takes place, we gain confidence. We become more confident. And then we start elevating ourselves to the higher levels again. Okay. All right, let's go to the energy of the 6, and we only have 2 more. So the energy of the 6 is the womb of existence. Think of a place in existence where everything is safe and secure. There is no danger, no harm can ever happen in that place. It's completely secure. And because it is secure, I can awaken to something else. I can be alert to something else. This is the place called holy faith or holy strength. Is that place in us that has this connection with the life force that wants me alive here, that is breathing me and it's beating my heart and wants me alive. And I can stand in the security and safety of this life force in me. And in that place, I can awaken to life. The way it shows up in the cosmos is all kinds of alertness. You can see my dog, I take my dog outside and, the ears go up and he's sensing and he's smelling and he's looking at everything. We wake up as babies, we wake up where we are, what's going on. The plants become alert to the light. They turn to the light. There's an awareness there. Here is a representation of a cat. When your cat is a 6, take a look at that.
Hey, let that go. Hey, let it go. Because if you fall out this window, they gonna blame me. Now let it go. Okay, good job. Good job. Now let's go get us a snack. Let's go get a snack. Okay, so you being hard-headed. Hey.
The 6 is the one that is aware. It's always aware of potential danger. It's always keeping things safe. Here's the baby, the baby of the 6 is like holding on for safety. And here's another one of that alertness. Look at this baby. They're presenting the 6.
Be right there to catch him. I don't know why he does this.
So you see, the energy of the 6 is the one that wants to keep things safe. It wants to keep things in that security. So we become, as we grow up, we become the guardian leader. And the guardian leader is very devoted, very reliable, very responsible. It's trying to keep everything safe and warm, building that community. There is cooperative and warm and fuzzy and a nice place to be. Now, when the ego starts to take place, we become very analytical, kind of second guessing everything. There is this ambivalence, push and pull, trying to look for systems and beliefs that can provide me with a sense of safety. And in our red flags, we become very cynical. We don't believe in anything anymore. We're just instilling fear. Everything can go wrong. We're looking at everything that can go wrong. We become actually very paranoid and panicky. These are the roles that we play in this energy. And the red flag here demonstrates an unconscious fear of being without guidance and support. If I'm without guidance and support, how am I going to survive? So the inner critic is like, you have to do your duty. You have to do what's right and what's safe, what's going to keep you safe for you to survive in the world. To alleviate this energy, to bring this energy up into the higher levels, we want to come to that basic trust. And basic trust means it's not about trusting on the outside. It's about trusting on the inside. What can I trust in me? Can I trust my inner wisdom that if some danger comes to me, something in me is going to respond with wisdom? Can I distinguish my intuition from my fear? What is it that it's the fear, my own paranoid thoughts, and what is it, my intuition really guiding me into the next step? What would be like to trust? These are done in very small steps. It's not like that tomorrow we're going to jump off a cliff because we trust. It's like we try little by little, little by little. What would it be like for me to trust? And we start with situations that are easier to exercise trust and intuition, and we start testing those things inside of us. So what we do here, we use our intuition little by little. We start with small things so we can start gaining this trust to our inner wisdom. And we create ways to establish this direct contact with essence. How do I know essence inside of me? What is essence inside of me? What wants me alive here? What's holding me here in this planet, really? And so you start connecting directly to that place that allows you a sense of safety. All right, last but not least, the energy of the seven. The seven is like the seed, the potentiality of existence. So think of the part of God that is always growing, always expanding. It's generative, and it's all about the possibilities. It's forward-looking, and it's always taking the next step. So the energy of the seven, we call it the holy wisdom of the holy, or the holy plan, is the one that is moving us forward, is moving us towards evolution. The way we see it in the cosmos is, we see in growing roots, in the seeds that are always growing, in pollination, fertilization. These are all efforts of expansion naturally. The energy of the seven is very open to the new. And here's a representation of that. Look at this bear right there. So at some point there, you don't know if the bear is drowning or if it's having fun. But that's about what the seven is. The seven will turn anything into it looks like fun. It's kind of the new, the adventure of it. In a little baby, the baby will find ways to have new excitement and new fun. Look at this one. And usually it can use transitional objects for that. There we go. So you may know somebody, or you may yourself, have that energy of like wanting to always be there. What's the next fun thing we're going to do? Where's the next fun thing we're going to do? We become the enthusiastic leader in this energy, very cheerful, youthful, they're spontaneous, energetic. But as the ego takes place, we become more impulsive, more pleasure-oriented, multitasking, and consuming, trying to get everything from the outside to satisfy us. And in the red flag, we have trouble following through, become very demanding and sensitive, kind of addictive tendencies in many ways, trying to escape life. And we come to this place of anticipation. The moment never fulfills us. We're always looking for something that is not here in order to be fulfilled. These are some of the roles of the seven. And our unconscious fear here in that red flag state is the fear of being deprived and trapped. Nothing scares us more than being deprived and trapped. Because if I'm deprived and trapped, then I can't survive. And so the inner critic is, I must get what I want. I must be able to be free enough to go get what I want. And the alleviation here, the appreciative increase, as we call, is the opportunity to sacrifice Sacrifice is actually a gift when we can come to sacrifice and realize, what can I let go to have something else? What is my mission, my vision, and my values? Because that's going to help us filter the things we really want to devote ourselves to, the things we really want to focus into. And how can this breath gives me fulfillment? How can this moment it gives me fulfillment? And I like to say the breath, because when we say the moment, our seven may think, oh, in this moment, I can grab this and I can grab that. And we're looking at outside for our fulfillment. But when we look at the breath, we're really taking the outside out and coming to that place of fulfillment from inside of us. And so in that place, we start developing the discernment. What's really important for me right here, right now? What do I want to focus on? And it's easier for me to let go of certain things and focus on others. And I can just relax in the wisdom of this moment. Like I can breathe and know that this moment is perfect in the way it is. And so I start getting deeper in my leadership and in my impact in the world. All right, so this is the information we had. And now I just want to share with you some of the programs we have in the, very briefly, the programs we have within the Institute. The first one was the Leadership Essentials, which we just graduated in May. The Leadership Essentials look at all the ways we are in the darkness. And every time we are in the red flags that we talk about, those red flags, they're always like, one energy pulls the other. It's never one alone, but being in the darkness is not fun. And the essentials then look at how we can move from that place to a place of light, what we can do. Those are the inquisitive, the appreciative inquiries we've been talking about, that allows us an exploration that elevates our consciousness and elevates our manifestation in the world. The next one we have is the Enneagram. We're starting the Enneagram Brazil and Portuguese in August, and we are looking into having an Enneagram in English again in the fall of next year. But that's what's happening this year. And then in the Enneagram riddles, what we learn is what we call the virtues. How do we learn to live from a state of serenity and humility and authenticity, equanimity, non-attachment, courage, sobriety, wonderment, and engagement? Those are the virtues that the Enneagram teaches us, so that we can actually look at ourselves and the world from a place of the holy ideas. And lastly, it's our mastery program. Our mastery program is starting in October. And so if you're interested, this is the enrollment we are doing now. Please let me know. I'll be happy to have a call with you and talk to you. It's 2 hours per week. We have an in-person graduation. We just had our graduation this year, a few weeks ago, but we're going to have another one May 25th next year. And we're looking forward to the group that it's going to come together for this year's mastery. And in the mastery, what we do is we look at 5 styles of leadership, those that are on the screen right now. They're come together by this critical axis. Critical axis is the name of my book that it's out there. Critical axis, the consciousness of choice in times of change. And it's all the leadership styles that you see here are inspired by the wisdom of the Enneagram. And we have several lessons in each of these leadership styles that allows us to dance, allows us to move according to these energies, so we can present ourselves in our best versions, no matter what the situation is, utilizing from all these planetary energies that are available for us. And now this time is available to you. Please share, bring your questions. Yes, Shannon.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if you could share about how the knowledge of the Enneagram and working with the Enneagram areas has practical applications in the role of leadership through the studying of each of the areas and applying how they relate to the different areas to each other. It's kind of a larger question. And, you know, with what I've learned about the Enneagram, you know, it's always a matter of putting kind of the work into practice. But at the same time, there are these areas of the Enneagram that kind of act as wings to other areas. And that's always been such an interesting inquiry for me, and how it's applied to my own experience of leadership.
Thank you for the question, because the Enneagram is extremely dynamic. Extremely dynamic. You not only have the inner lines, as you see in the drawing, but you have the wings, which are the adjacent types. When you take a test or when you observe yourself, you can start recognizing what is the predominant energy that manifests through you. And then as you start looking at this predominant energy, you're going to look at instances where it goes into the wings or it goes into the inner lines. So what the Enneagram really does to you, it makes you an incredible observer. It makes you appreciate everything you observe, because it gives you the foundation of what you're observing. It gives you a perspective to what you're seeing. For me, for example, before I learned the Enneagram, a lot of things were happening in my life and people were saying things and doing things. And I couldn't really know what they're doing, why they were doing that. And in fact, it created a lot of judgments in my life and a lot of conflict in my life, because I really didn't know where they were coming from. And so the beauty of the Enneagram is your opportunity to observe something or someone, recognize a certain energy. And once you recognize that energy, you can see so many layers of what's present there. And you can talk to somebody not from what I think it is or should be, but I can talk from where all these many layers that I observe coming from them. In conflict resolution, this is a wonderful skill to have. In families, I mean, I don't think, and Mike is here to testify to this, I don't think I would still be married if it wasn't for the Enneagram, because the Enneagram has been the knowledge that made me understand the layers of somebody like Mike that comes from a different energy than me, and learn to appreciate what he's doing instead of judging what he's doing. And this is valuable for my children, both of my children. The Enneagram completely changed my relationship with my children. And so the coaching I do is all based on the Enneagram. So I don't know an area in which the Enneagram is not applicable. And the more you learn about it, the more you see applicabilities for you, the more you start seeing it in the birds, in the trees, in the sky, everywhere. Yes, Cynthia.
Well, Inely, it's been a while since I've heard this presentation, and I remember you saying that you were able to distill all the information that used to take so many months before you were able to give this holistic picture of the whole 9 energies. And I do acknowledge you, because it feels so much like you have found the essence of all of these, and in a way that makes it, I think, so accessible and practical and relatable. And the reason I have learned from my experience of your presentations about the Enneagram, how the potential is for each one of us to move into an expression of all of the types. And I see that potentiated so much more in this presentation as you've updated it. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for this really very accessible and practical development in the way you're presenting the program. It's wonderful, really.
Thank you, Cynthia. The way I present is very unique. you're not going to see a lot out there about the cosmological applications of the Enneagram, because the ancient wisdom of the Enneagram is not really out there. You really have to dig to find those things. But one thing that I know is that when we are not aware of the energy in us, we become puppets of these energies. It's like these energies are coming through us and we are having reactions and we are upset for reasons that we don't really know what, and it's almost like outside of our control. And we sometimes feel like we don't know how to get out of it. We feel really it's like somebody has taken over me and I don't know how to get out of it. And this causes tremendous pain, tremendous conflicts in the family, in at work, everywhere. It's a very difficult place to be. So the knowledge of these energies allows us to recognize other ways out. It's like, okay, this energy is playing to me, right? Is playing in me right now, but I also have this opportunity and I also have that opportunity. And so it opens up a whole broad perspective of looking at the same situation from different angles. And that is a great opportunity for freedom and for diversity and for expansion. And we become, I think we live life from a place of greater serenity, greater humility, greater authenticity, greater equanimity, non-attached. It doesn't have to be this way. We are open, we are courageous, we are sober. Like we're not like drunk by our own little narrow views. We are more innocent, living in this wonderment. And we are able to engage more fully and come to a place of greater fulfillment. I hope to see you in our programs, or I hope that we can connect for a consultation or just to get to know each other better. Thank you for being here. I wish you a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend.